Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renuka and with me is Saira Mustafa bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holds bilateral talks with Tanzanian counterpart Dr. Stergomena Lawrence Tax in New Delhi. It says India-Tanzania partnership will continue to grow over coming decades. India and Sweden join hands to develop next-generation sustainable aviation technology. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Argentina President Alberto Fernandez to discuss strengthening bilateral cooperation. India gets the largest number of study, work and visitor visas from UK in year ending June 2022. Pakistan government declares national emergency in wake of floods, over 900 people killed and 30 million rendered homeless. And in cricket, Asia Cup kicks off in Dubai tomorrow, Sri Lanka to take on Afghanistan in the opening match. And now the news in detail. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today held a bilateral meeting with Tanzanian Minister of Defence and National Service, Dr. Stergomena Lawrence Tax in New Delhi. After the meeting, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said there is an immense scope to boost defence and military cooperation between both the countries. He expressed confidence that India-Tanzania partnership will continue to grow over the coming decades, taking the bilateral relations to a greater height. He said both the leaders reviewed the full range of India-Tanzania defence ties. Mr. Singh said India and Tanzania share the same strategic space and India considers Tanzania as a major Western Indian Ocean player. Earlier, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh received Tanzanian Minister of Defence and National Service, Dr. Stergomena Lawrence Tax. Dr. Stergomena Lawrence Tax inspected the Tri-Service Guard of Honor. She also laid wreath and paid homage to the fallen heroes at the National War Memorial in New Delhi. Dr. Tax will visit Hyderabad during her stay in India, where she would be interacting with Indian defence industries. She would also be visiting Ordnance Factory at Medak, Bharat Dynamics Limited and Zen Technologies Limited in Hyderabad. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Argentina President Alberto Fernandez on Thursday. In a series of tweets, Dr. Jaishankar said they discussed strengthening the bilateral cooperation, including making trade levels more sustainable and ambitious. He also spoke about energy and food security, both from the perspective of the global south and bilateral ties between the two countries. Dr. Jaishankar underlined the importance of affordable healthcare, including pharmaceuticals. They also exchanged views on the potential for defence cooperation as well as in nuclear energy.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met Deputy Treasury Secretary U.S. Wally Adeyemo in New Delhi today. The two sides exchanged views on global economic and the financial sector issues. In a tweet, the Ministry of Finance said that both the leaders discussed India's G20 presidency in 2023, as well as areas of cooperation for continued and enhanced India-US partnership. The 38th meeting of Ministerial Level Joint Rivers Commission GRC of India and Bangladesh was held in New Delhi yesterday. The two sides finalized the text of MOU on interim water sharing of Kushiara River. Both sides also welcomed the finalization of the design and location of water intake point on the Feni River to meet the drinking water needs of Sabroom town in Tripura as per the October 2019 India-Bangladesh MOU on the subject. The Indian delegation was led by Union Minister for Jal Shakti, Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, and the Bangladesh delegation was led by State Minister for Water Resources, Zahid Farooq. The meeting assumes significance as it was held after a long gap of 12 years, though the technical interactions under the framework of JRC have continued in the intervening period. India and Bangladesh share 54 rivers, of which 7 rivers have been identified earlier for developing framework of water sharing agreements on priority. During the meeting, it was agreed to widen the area of the ongoing cooperation by including 8 more rivers for data exchange. The matter will be further discussed at the Technical Level Committee of JRC. The Joint Rivers Commission of India and Bangladesh was constituted in the year 1972.
Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama today arrived in New Delhi. Dalai Lama has arrived in Delhi after a gap of over 3 years. After a month-long sojourn in Ladakh, the Dalai Lama departed from Leh to Delhi today. The Airports Authority of India (AAI) and Sweden's LFV Air Navigation Services have joined hands for developing and operationalizing the next generation sustainable aviation technology to explore smart aviation solutions. The AAI and Sweden's LFV signed a memorandum of understanding today in New Delhi in this regard. The Civil Aviation Ministry informed that the MOU will pave the way for bilateral exchange of aviation knowledge, expertise and technology transfer between the two countries. It will also allow the Indian companies to accelerate growth while leveraging Swedish innovation and expertise. The MOU aims to expand technical cooperation in airports and support the development of a safe, secure, sustainable and efficient aviation sector. On the occasion, Chairman of Airports Authority of India, Sanjeev Kumar, expressed confidence that the mutual exchange in civil aviation between AAI and LFV Sweden will go a long way in building an operationalization of next-generation smart and sustainable aviation technology. Ambassador of Sweden in India, Claes Molin, said he is looking forward to seeing how the MOU can foster more opportunities for Sweden and India to explore climate-smart solutions within the aviation sector.
Indian nationals have been issued the largest number of study, work and visitor visas from the United Kingdom in the year ending June 2022. The latest UK immigration statistics published yesterday shows that nearly 118,000 Indian students received a student visa in the year ending June 2022, an 89% increase from the previous year. With this, India has now overtaken China as the largest nationality being issued sponsored study visas in the UK. The British High Commissioner to India, Alex Ellis, said yesterday that he was delighted that Indian nationals were issued the largest number of UK study, work and visitor visas. He wished for more strength to the unique living bridge that connects the people of the two countries. The High Commissioner encouraged students starting courses soon to apply as early as possible. Indian nationals accounted for the highest proportion of visitor visas too, at 28%, which proves that the UK continues to be a popular destination for Indian holidaymakers. More than 258,000 Indian nationals received visit visas in the year ending June 2022, a 638% increase compared to the previous year. In the work visa section as well, Indian nationals received nearly 103,000 visas, which includes skilled and seasonal workers. It was a 148% increase over the previous year. In today's hotspot section, we have a discussion on the developments free in Jammu and Kashmir. In conversations are Vivek Sinha, political analyst, and Neela Srivastav, journalist.
It is more than 3 years now that the Article 370 constitutional provision that gave a special status to Jammu and Kashmir was abrogated by the Union government, and this decision was declared on August 5th, 2019, and subsequently, as we all know now, that the state was bifurcated into the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, with the provision of having a legislative assembly for the former, which is Jammu and Kashmir. Soon after the government took the decision, it said that the aim of this historic declaration was aimed at ushering in development for the region, which has faced the brunt of terrorism for decades, and also for integrating it into the mainstream of India. How do you analyze the situation now in 2022, Mr. Sinha?
As you have very well stated, that after the abrogation of Article 370 and Article 35A, the process of integration of Jammu and Kashmir began in the right earnest. So earlier, if I may take it back, at the abrogation phase, there was no accountability to the funds that were sanctioned by the center from time to time. If you look at the history of Jammu and Kashmir post-independence, New Delhi has been giving out money like anything. Every time we spent money, it was lining the pockets of few politicians, the dynasts over there and their cronies. But the ground reality was not changing. What happened after the abrogation of Article 370 and Article 35A is that the accountability set in and TAG could audit all those funds that were sanctioned. The democracy seeped right at the panchayat level. So the empowerment of the common Kashmiri, common people across Jammu and Kashmir happened. And that is why we see a spree of development. I mean, roads are being constructed, power generation has almost doubled, and the target for tripling the power generation distribution has improved substantially. 53 projects in various sectors of roads, power, health. All these things are being undertaken at a rapid pace. If I may read out a couple of data points that will give our listeners some understanding as to how much development is being carried out. So, around 5,000 crores has been spent for power transmission, and this power generation capacity has almost tripled over the last 3 years. And there are plans that this will triple over the next 7 years as well. So at the present time, 3,500 megawatt electricity is being generated. Then if I talk about the medical colleges, the nursing colleges, seats have doubled, the colleges have increased. So you have roads being constructed at a very rapid pace, tunnels are being constructed. So all these, each of these segments, any parameter of development, if you pick, there will be n number of data points to show how things have drastically improved over the last 3 years since the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. So this personal fiefdom, when it stopped and the crony appeasement has stopped, so the funds being sent out from the center is being utilized in a proper manner.
The situation in Jammu and Kashmir, whether this is regarding public affairs, economic or political or any other such indices, this is by default somehow seen from the prism of security also. As we all know that the region also shares very volatile borders with Pakistan, with the Ladakh region now has a border with China. Only yesterday, on Thursday, Union Home Minister Amit Shah reviewed the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir with the Lieutenant Governor of the Union Territory, senior officials of the UT government and from the center at the Home Ministry. And he also directed them to continue their efforts of wiping out terrorism from the area through a coordinated action where multiple security agencies are involved. Now, we know that the infiltration of terrorists keeps the agencies involved. And also at the same time, data shows that the incidents of stone pelting have come down to a negligible zero. The killing of terrorists has also been very high. But also at the same time, the recent spate of killings of the locals and Kashmiri Pandits is a big cause of concern. Your take, Mr. Sanha, on this?
We are progressing. The state of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is progressing. The development projects are taking up. But at the same time, we must realize that Pakistan has not given up its nefarious design. So they are still planning, they are still trying to disturb the calm and serenity in Jammu and Kashmir. So they are trying to infiltrate their terrorists, or they are trying to rope in some disgruntled youth from the valley into the stone pelting incidents or into working for them as overground workers or as conduits for foreign trained terrorists. So all these things are going to happen. What seeds were sown in 2019 are being reaped at this point of time. So again, as you rightly mentioned, the number of terrorist killing has increased, the number of infiltration has decreased, but it hasn't stopped altogether. So these steps that are being taken by the Home Minister Amit Shah and state government officials, the intelligence officials, these needs to be taken in the right earnest, and the overground network which still exists, the terrorist overground network, this needs to be dismantled. And this is what probably Home Minister Amit Shah was trying to figure out and trying to eliminate when he conducted this meeting. So we'll have to understand this from a perspective that to bring a full stop to terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, we have to understand the mindset of the Pakistanis. And of course, we need to invest and look at the scenario in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan as well. Because as we talk about development happening on this side of the Kashmir, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has been in turmoil over the last couple of months. There have been protests at a very, very massive scale. Price has been rising, and there has been disgruntlement due to high-handedness of the Pakistan army. So it is very easy for the Pakistanis to rope in Kashmiris from POK and blame the entire scenario over there onto India and make them infiltrate to our side and let them some kind of a terrorist activity. So fallout of it is we have to see in terms of how we are dealing with this issue in totality. I mean, there cannot be a piecemeal approach that, yes, this is the Kashmir Valley on our side, on the Indian side, and we only look at it in isolation. So when the Home Minister and all the officials have discussed these issues, I'm sure they must have looked at the perspective in POK and Gilgit-Baltistan as well, because enough turmoil is going on over there which has the potential to disturb the peace and development process over here.
All these development initiatives that were taken post-August 2019 somehow will also lead to the electoral process in the UT, and as the government has said that once there are elections, there can also be a thought about reverting the status of the UT to a full-fledged state again. And now this is widely anticipated that the elections in the UT, Jammu and Kashmir would be held later this year or could be early next year. Also very recently, the Chief Electoral Officer of the UT has declared about the publishing of the final electoral rolls, the purity of the rolls exercise that the Election Commission undertakes. Now, Mr. Sinha, do you think that this is a step, these development initiatives are a step in that direction? Is it a good time to hold polls in Jammu and Kashmir?
It's good to still wait for another couple of months. This is something which the election commission will decide. I can always think about in terms of empowering the average Kashmiri or the average citizen in Jammu and Kashmir. So average Jammu and Kashmiri is empowered at this point of time. See, earlier when Article 370 and 35A were there, a couple of politician families used to rule the roost over there. And their cronies used to get tickets and they used to become the ministers. And they used to siphon away all the funds that were being sent out from the center to various developmental schemes. This was a stop. And we also held the district elections, the panchayat elections. They were held very successfully. So already the democratic process has seeped in at the lowest level, at the grassroots level. Now the process has to be widened. And India being the largest democracy and a very vibrant democracy, we always have this methodology of electing the government rather than while earlier the process was that a few politician families, they ran their political organizations like a private limited company. So now this apparatus has been broken. Now the security situation is strengthened. It's still being strengthened, further being strengthened by the visit of the Home Minister and by the various initiatives that are being taken at the security front. The development has already happened over there. People have seen what havoc Article 370 and 35A did to their place, and they had to grapple with all the basic necessities of life. So I think at the outset, this is the right time to conduct elections. But still, I will say that when to hold the decision, this is entirely a prerogative of the Election Commission of India, and they will figure out. But the process is, as you rightly said, the process has been set and this could be followed further.
With regard to the development initiatives, now this works to empower the citizens, the electorate, and also the political activity in the region. This may be Jammu and Kashmir or any other place. So how do you see the overall gamut of connecting development, peace and security, and then ushering into the most important thing that is relevant to a democracy is the electoral process? Your final comments?
Earlier, when you used to travel into the Kashmir Valley, there were serious infrastructural concerns, like roads were in a dilapidated state, electricity supply was erratic, water supply was very erratic. There was hardly any healthcare setup over there, education system. Anything and everything was in shambles over there. And there were funds allocated for all these infrastructural issues, for all these development projects. Everything was done on paper. Nothing was used to happen on the ground. But now things have started moving on the ground. When in 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, a couple of politicians said that there will be rivers of blood and all of those kind of provocative comments were made. Nothing of that sort has happened. Rather, we are talking about development. We can go about talking about the crores and crores of development projects that are happening. Bridges are being constructed. Tunnels are being constructed over there. Roads are being laid out. Average kilometers road being laid out on a daily basis has increased from over the last 3 years, increased drastically. The healthcare setup has improved. So what does a common man want? The basic necessity of a common man is again roti, kapda and makan, food, clothing and shelter, and all these things are being taken care of. When the security scenario is being improved, the development projects are being improved, there is no stopping for the electoral process to go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing your points, Mr. Sinha.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter @AIR News Alerts.
In Pakistan, the government on Thursday officially declared a national emergency in wake of the rain-induced floods, which have so far killed 937 people and left at least 30 million without shelter. The Pakistani government called the incessant monsoon rains a climate-induced humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. According to media reports, the abnormal increase in rainfall has generated flash floods across the country, particularly in the southern part of Pakistan. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, in a statement said the country received 166.8 mm of rain in August as compared to the average of 48 mm. The authority said the rains and floods had so far killed 937 people, including 343 children. It said Sindh province reported the highest number of deaths as 306 people lost their lives due to floods and rain-related incidents. The NDMA also said that Sindh and Balochistan are the worst hit regions. According to local media, the abnormal increase in rainfall generated flash floods across the country and remains inundated at the moment, with 23 districts of Sindh being declared calamity hit. Earlier, Pakistan has urged the international community to help with relief efforts. In Afghanistan, at least 180 people have been killed this month due to flood in central and eastern Afghan provinces in recent weeks. According to media reports, flooding has brought widespread devastation and washed away thousands of houses and exacerbated the country's economic and humanitarian crisis. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said that the Islamic Emirate is not able to manage the floods alone. They are appealing the international organizations and countries to help Afghanistan. The Taliban spokesman further said more than 3,100 houses have been completely destroyed and thousands of livestock also killed. According to local media reports, Afghanistan has been reeling from natural disasters this year.
In United States of America, the California state announced that it will ban the sale of new petrol vehicles by 2035. Under the new rules issued by the California Air Resources Board, 35% of new vehicles sold in the state must be electric, hybrid, and hydrogen-powered by 2026. The regulations would apply to 68% of vehicle sales by 2030 and 100% by 2035, as the media reported. The new rules are aimed to force car makers to accelerate the introduction to the market of cleaner vehicles. The move is important as California is the most populous state in the U.S. and one of the world's biggest economies. The announcement is the latest move by California as it continues to move faster than the U.S. federal government to tighten emission rules. Tigrayan forces in northern Ethiopia say the federal government has conducted fresh airstrikes in the region's capital, Mekelle. Tigray television, affiliated with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, has showed images of a destroyed building and said civilians were killed in the strikes. But a statement released by the government's communications office said people in Tigray should stay away from areas where the TPLF's military equipment and training facilities were located. The UN World Food Programme said its aid convoys were unable to reach Tigray, where the conflict that erupted in November 2020 has left millions in urgent need of food aid. On Thursday, the head of the WHO, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said he had not been able to send money to members of his family in Tigray.
The United States will significantly increase the resettlement of Rohingya refugees from the region, including from Bangladesh, so that they can rebuild their lives in the U.S. A press release issued by the U.S. State Department said this on the completion of 5 years of the first exodus of Rohingya people from Myanmar. Secretary Anthony Blinken said the United States will continue to support Rohingya and the people of Burma in their pursuit of freedom and inclusive democracy. He said they will continue advancing justice and accountability, increasing economic and diplomatic pressure, and safeguarding the human rights and human dignity of all individuals in Burma. Expressing solidarity with the government of Bangladesh and other Rohingya hosting governments in the region, Secretary Blinken said that U.S. has provided over $1.7 billion to assist those affected by the crisis in Burma, Bangladesh, and elsewhere in the region. The U.S. extended its support to the case brought against Myanmar by Gambia under the Genocide Convention at the International Court of Justice. The statement also said U.S. also supports measures by the UN Security Council to promote justice and accountability for the military's actions in line with its mandate to promote international peace and security. And now a report from the business world.
Sensex rose by 59 points, 0.1% to finish at 58,834, while Nifty added 36 points, 0.21% to end at 17,559. At the global stock markets, Asian share markets were positive, except China's Shanghai Composite Index, which slipped by 0.3%. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose by 0.6% and Singapore's Straits Times ended 0.5% up. South Korea's Kospi gained 0.2% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng added 0.1%. European share markets trading mixed in intraday trade. Oil prices rose more than 1% as fresh U.S. data lowered recession fears, although a caution ahead of an upcoming speech from the U.S. Fed Reserve Chairman capped further gains. Brent crude was trading at $100.55 per barrel. Back home at the multi-commodity exchange, gold futures for October was trading at 51,400 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures for September was trading at 55,565 rupees per kilogram when reports last came in. And at the foreign exchange market, the rupee appreciated depreciated marginally by 1 paise to 79 rupees and 87 paise against the US dollar. Arjun Chaudhary for World News All India Radio.
On to sports now. In the BWF World Championships 2022, Indian pair of Chirag Shetty and Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy made history as they secured India's first men's doubles medal in the history of the BWF World Championships 2022 after defeating world number 2 Takuro Hoki and Yugo Kobayashi of Japan to storm into the semi-finals. In the men's singles, Indian shuttler H.S. Pranoy's dream ended on Friday after losing the hard-fought quarter-final to China's Yun Pen Zhao in Tokyo. Pranoy crashed out of the tournament after losing to Zhao 21-19, 6-21, 18-21. Meanwhile, in men's doubles, Arjun and Dhruv Kapila lost to Indonesians Hendra Setiawan and Muhammad Ehsan by 8-21, 14-21. The Asia Cup 2022 kicks off tomorrow with a match between Sri Lanka and Afghanistan. On the other hand, defending champions India will kick-start its campaign with a match against arch-rivals Pakistan on the 28th of August. It is worth noting that the continental event was earlier set to take place in Sri Lanka, but the economic crisis in the country saw the tournament being shifted to UAE. The Gulf nation will be hosting the event across two venues, that is Dubai International Cricket Stadium and Sharjah Cricket Stadium. The continental event will be played in the T20 format, featuring 6 teams divided into 2 groups at the start. In their respective groups, the teams will be playing each other once. The top 2 teams from both the groups will then advance to the Super Fours, where all the 4 teams will be playing once against each other. The final will take place on the 11th of September. All India Radio will broadcast ball-by-ball commentary in Hindi and English of the tournament. The commentary will be available on the national hookup.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Globe and Mail reports international students waiting for visas from Ottawa at risk of missing start of classes. The Guardian writes, Moderna sues Pfizer and BioNTech over coronavirus vaccine. The Financial Times reports the US and China reach landmark audit inspection deal. The Wall Street Journal says SpaceX and T-Mobile plan to link Starlink satellites to cell phones. South China Morning Post reports US suspends 26 flights to China by Chinese airlines over zero-COVID rules. The Japan Times writes, Tokyo Olympic bribery scandal puts spotlight on money's influence. And now, a quick look at the headlines once again. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holds bilateral talks with Tanzanian counterpart Dr. Stergomena Lawrence Tax in New Delhi, asserts India-Tanzania partnership will continue to grow over coming decades. India and Sweden join hands to develop next-generation sustainable aviation technology. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Argentina President Alberto Fernandez to discuss strengthening bilateral cooperation. India gets the largest number of study, work and visitor visa from UK in year ending June 2022. Pakistan government declares national emergency in wake of floods, over 900 people killed and 30 million rendered homeless. And in cricket, Asia Cup kicks off in Dubai tomorrow, Sri Lanka to take on Afghanistan in the opening match. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from Indonesia. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.